What's up everybody, my name is Kiefer and welcome back to Overwatch. Season 11 just dropped and so it's time to go over the patch notes, see who's been buffed and who's been nerfed. To start off with a quick general change, when two charging abilities collide, the knockdown time has been reduced from 2 to 1.7 seconds. This means when a Brig and a Reinhardt or a Reinhardt and a Doomfist collide in their charging attacks and they're stunned, it has been reduced by 0.3 seconds. Moving on to the tanks, starting off with d.va, the spread for her primary fire has been reduced from 3.75 to 3.375 degrees, and the impact of her boosters has been buffed from 15 to 25. These are both overall fairly small buffs, but they give d.va players a little extra ability to take down squishies and finish kills, allowing them to contribute a little bit more. Next up, Junker Queen's Jagged Blade has been buffed to pull tanks further, as it basically just wasn't working against tanks, and the cast time for her ult has been reduced from 0.75 to 0.5 seconds. For Orisa, the cooldown for her Javelin spin has been reduced from 9 to 8 seconds, and Roadhog received some pretty large nerfs overall, with his health being reduced from 650 to 600, and the health reduction during his vape being reduced from 50 to 40%. This double nerf likely means the end of our current Hog meta, which opens the space back up for Mauga to once again be the required tank, as he's receiving no changes this patch, and I would expect to see him nerfed in the mid-season update. Moving on to the DPS characters. Starting off with Cass, his Fan the Hammer was nerfed from 50 to 45 damage. The damage reduction during his roll has been reduced from 75 to 50%. His Magnetic Grenade has been made into a flashbang, which hinders targets instead of stunning them, and it hinders them for 1.2 seconds, increases the movement speed reduction caused by hinder from 30 to 50%, prevents the target from crouching, deals 45 explosive damage, and has a 12-second cooldown. And finally, the movement speed penalty of his ult scales down over time from 70% to 30%, meaning by the end of the duration of your Deadeye, you'll have more than double the movement speed that you had at the start. However, the damage reduction now scales down over time from 40% to 0%. Next up is Mei, whose secondary fire has had its projectile size reduced from 0.15 to 0.12 meters, but its damage buffed from 75 to 85. According to the devs, the idea is to make her secondary more of a rewarding skill shot than a choke spam ability. Reaper has had the spread of his shotguns reduced from 6.5 to 6 degrees, meaning that the cone of damage is smaller and more accurate, and the cast time of his Shadow Step has been reduced from 1.5 to 1.2 seconds. This will likely lead to a lot more pressure on tanks from Reaper and give him a little more lethality against squishies with movement abilities, which will likely be felt the most in the metal ranks. Sojourn's Railgun has had its secondary fire damage nerfed from doing 30 to 130 damage depending on your charge, down to 1 to 100 damage, meaning low energy Sojourn shot will now do very minimal damage instead of being a decent form of poke. However, previously her Railgun could only pierce targets while she was in her ultimate, and now it will always have pierce. The fire rate of her primary fire has been buffed from 14 to 16 shots per second, meaning she can charge up her Railgun faster. Her ultimate also received a buff, increasing its energy recharge from 100 to 120 energy per second. This means Sojourn will be much deadlier while spamming her ult because pretty much every shot will be at max charge. Overall, I think this will do very little to handle the suppression seen from Sojourn, especially for tank players, and seeing as Mauga will likely be the meta this season, at least at the beginning, we will likely see a lot of Sojourn play too. Have fun getting headshot directly through your Mauga with a fully charged railgun. Sim's base health has been buffed from 100 to 125, giving her 275 health overall, and her primary fire charge rate has been increased by 25%. This is disgusting, rest in peace tank players. Moving on to the sports, Illari's Outburst has had its damage buffed from 10 to 25, her Pylon has had its healing projectile buffed from 30 to 40 healing, and the max health of the Pylon has been increased from 100 to 125. However, it now only is half as effective at healing Illari herself, giving her less sustainability, but I think overall, it's a buff that will lead to us seeing a lot of Illari play this season. Kiri's Swift Step cooldown has been increased from 7 to 8 seconds, and her Suzu no longer cleanses hard knockdown stuns like Shatter. Overall, I think the DPS buffs were a bit extreme, especially with Reaper, Mei, and Sim all receiving buffs at the same time. I think this is going to cause a lot of frustration for the lower ranks and for a lot of tank players, as they'll have a lot less room to operate, and the DPS are going to feel a lot more oppressive, especially with the DPS passive. I don't think this is going to be too great of a season.